Hello, I'm Andrew Pearce, and this is The Daily Show from the Daily Mail newsroom. Coming up, would you like to be driven in a car without a driver? Because a Nissan self-driving car has completed a record 230-mile journey autonomously. We're going to be talking about Labour and anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism has risen in Britain for the fourth year running, and 1 in 8 of the incidents are linked to the Labour Party. Britain is quietly increasing its maritime defences to prevent a repeat of the Cod War in the 1970s when we leave the EU. And on our front page today, an amazing picture of Anne Sacoolas, wanted in connection with the death of the motorcyclist Harry Dunn. She's filling up petrol to do the school run. Has she no shame? Now, Britain is stepping up its maritime defences. Do you remember the Cod Wars of the 1970s? I'm afraid I'm old enough. I do. This comes after new figures tell us that just 40% of the fish caught in British waters go to UK trawlers. Now, the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs last night said in a statement, after leaving the EU, we will have the right to decide who fishes in our water, which is a firm rebuff to the European Union negotiating team, which say fish have to be part of the package. Joining me now is the former leader of UKIP, Richard Braine. Richard, the fishing waters, it is one of the great totemic issues about our ongoing battles with the EU.
That's right. Thank you, Andrew, for having me on the pod. You're absolutely right. And in fact, the situation is, I think, slightly worse than you put. I think the UK lands about 750,000 tonnes of the 6 million tonnes that the EU lands each year. But about half of that comes from UK waters. So it's one of this country's huge resources. And we have by far the best fishing grounds of any of the countries in the European Union. And we handed it over in the 1970s back, the terrible Heath government. And the EU fishing industry has done very, very well out of our fishing waters. They should be grateful to us for handing over such a fantastic resource for 50 years now. And in fact, it's time that we're going to get it back. And I hope that gradually we will start to assert our right and our fishermen's rights to actually fish British waters, and that our industry will grow, that our processing facilities and ports will slowly be regenerated, and jobs and income will come from that. So it's a very exciting prospect, and the Johnson government must not capitulate on this. This is what Brexit is all about. This is what we voted for, is to be an independent nation that had the freedom actually to manage and make use of its own resources.
Now, they've hired 2 extra ships to support the Royal Navy Fishery Protection Squadron. A further 22 boats have been issued with orders to be on standby. Do you really think we would do a Cod War like we did with Iceland in the 70s?
Well, it's certainly possible, and we've seen recently some argy-bargy, if I can call it that, between British and French fishermen, because, of course, don't forget, we will actually be losing our right to access the French coast, fishing close to the French coast. But that's a small concession when you consider the huge fishing area that we will be gaining exclusive control of. So I think it is possible that there will be some standoffs and some fairly aggressive behaviour between fishermen. This is always going on. It's nothing new, really. But it is important that we actually increase the Royal Navy's ability to, one, protect our fishermen when they go about their jobs fishing in our waters, and secondly, to make sure that we actually police our waters and stop other fishermen from other countries coming into our waters and essentially poaching the fishing stock, because it's also about looking after the fishing stock. We don't want over exploitation of the fishing. We need to regenerate. The fishing stocks have fallen over the last 100 years considerably, I think by about 90% or so.
Okay.
So it is also a matter of fishing it sustainably and making sure that the right amount of fish is caught.
Can I just ask you finally, what's happened to UKIP? You disappeared down the plug hole at the general election. Is the party still in business?
Well, the party still exists. I'm no longer involved with the party. When I was elected to the leadership of the party's NEC made life very difficult for me and brought a court case against me ultimately for ensuring that someone could send an email to the members. I was never given the free ability to email the members of the party, which is, I think, an absurdity, bearing in mind I was elected with 53% of the vote against 3 other candidates. So the closest competitor got 20% and I got 53%, you would think that I ought to be allowed to communicate freely with the members of the party that elected me. But the NEC didn't and doesn't see it that way, and they continue to conduct a court case against me. Ben Walker, who was convicted in January last year of building offences, and Neil Hamilton, who, as you know, was called a liar and a cheat. They continue to orchestrate the decisions of the NEC and others on the NEC, and they treated me very shoddily and continue to do so. So I'm no longer a member of the party. I hope that the party can recover from this, but it looks like the members' wishes are not being taken very seriously.
OK, that's Richard Braine. He was leader of UKIP, and if you're interested, UKIP polled a mighty 22,817 votes at the general election. Vote share 0.1%. They did well. Remember to tell your Alexa speaker to play Daily Mail News, and you'll get the latest newsroom live from Mail Plus, and at 5, hear the latest Daily Show. A new report by the Jewish charity, the Community Security Trust, has found that 1 in 8 anti-Semitic incidents last year was linked to the Labour Party. And it's very depressing, this report, because for the 4th year running, anti-Semitism has increased in Britain. Last year, there were 1,805 cases, 697 online, which was an increase of 82% on 2018. The Trust says the highest number of incidents were in February and December, coinciding with the same periods where alleged anti-Semitism within the Labour Party was the subject of great discussion. Joining me now is Gideon Falter, Chief Executive of the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. Gideon, there'll be a new Labour leader soon. Do you hope that marks the decline or the high point in the problems over anti-Semitism in the Labour Party?
Well, we certainly hope whoever takes over in the Labour Party is going to really address the problem in a way that Jeremy Corbyn never did. The risk, of course, is that we just end up with somebody else who claims that their leadership is different, and because of that, the problem has gone away. Of course, we know that with Jeremy Corbyn came a whole cohort of people who corrupted the disciplinary processes of the party and who really enabled the anti-Semitism to take hold. And so we need to make sure that whoever becomes leader really tackles the problem and addresses it. And unfortunately, some of the people in the running, we don't have an awful lot of confidence in based on their actions so far. Of course, that might change in leadership. But what we're really hoping is that when the Equality and Human Rights Commission, which has launched an investigation in which we're the complainant, once they report on Labour anti-Semitism, they will hopefully come out with a set of recommendations which will be legally enforceable. So whoever is Labour leader, they will be compelled to take the action necessary to address anti-Semitism in the party.
Especially poignant in this year of all years, Gideon, the 70th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, where leaders from around the world were there to mark that commemoration. And yet we saw in parts of North London where I live, anti-Semitic slogans daubed on walls in areas where people would have known Jewish people may live or choose to go out.
I mean, the number of incidents has obviously grown this year. This year's a record year. But what we're also seeing, as you say, is this sort of this relentless drumbeat of anti-Semitic incidents becoming more and more noticeable, becoming more and more worrying. And the incident to which you refer, of course, is a set of graffiti which was left over, I think, dozens of businesses and synagogue, or at least over a dozen, and blamed Jews for committing the 9/11 terrorist atrocities. And we've been seeing everything from that through to Jews being threatened with knives, Jews being punched and bloodied and left writhing in agony on the floor, through to the sort of incitement that the Holocaust survivors tell us is reminiscent of the kind of incitement you saw in Nazi Germany. Of course, there's no comparison between Britain today and Nazi Germany. And in fact, the electorate, we see in polling after the election, was actually very much, cared a great deal about anti-Semitism. But we are seeing these sort of Nazi tropes being revived. And the great problem that we have at the moment is a lack of enforcement. These anti-Semites becoming bolder and bolder and not fearing that they will face justice.
All right, that's Gideon Falter, who's Chief Executive of the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. Pretty shocking figures, aren't they? Now, if you enjoy The Daily Show, please subscribe to us. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Google or Spotify. If you want to get in touch, email me at dailyshow@mailplus.co.uk or follow us at Mail Plus underscore. Coming up, a self-driving car has successfully driven 230 miles automatically. Would you get in one? Not sure I would. And is your house full of clutter? We bring you the solution after we find out what's on TV tonight with Claudia Connell.
Thanks, Andrew. There's a programme called Secrets of the Museum that's on BBC Two tonight.